I have been discussing the document dumping, so to speak, which is a way of saying that the documents were being spread all over the place, which in one way is a form of discovery where you send off things that aren't important. In this case, they were lethal and vital in some ways to the work of other people. So I call it document dumping. And who did that? Well, just about everyone who got in contact with the documents where I was supposed to have the sole control. And the only place that I've mentioned in terms of Henry Waxman, congressman from California, that would have been proper, and that would have not upset anyone. And, well, it would have, but not necessarily in the sense of being a total upset to the people who were involved in the litigation in Louisville. And so when we have document dumping, it just spreads. And there seems to be no culpability about it. There seems to be, oh, well, tobacco has been acting very mischievously over the years. So why in the world would we give them a break now? Not that I would feel onerous or I wouldn't have a difficulty with that, except there was a promise back here. Dickie and the boys from Ole Miss had made a certain effort to say to me one thing. These are going to stay in your custody. But the moment they hit the room, they started to be copied. So from there on, we have a distance to go before they're actually somewhat legal or illegal or however you want to look at them. Now, I think you have a question here.
Again, about what was legally correct and not.
No, it was all illegal. It was all illegal. It was all not correct, in my opinion. I'm not a judge here, but I would say that in terms of what Judge Wine had presumed to be legal, everything that was happening in Mississippi was not legal. I don't care where it came from. I don't care where it went to. It was being spread and document dumping was going on.
So, did Professor Glantz have legal rights
Professor
to the
Glantz
Brown and Williamson documents?
did not have any legal rights to anything, and yet it was conceived, designed, coordinated, and somehow put into the hopper by someone who knew something, because Glantz had not been on the scene very long, but he had been very prominent, Glantz. To be formally approached here, Dr. Stanton Glantz with PhDs in various things, including a very active involvement in side streams such as tobacco smoke. I don't recall seeing his name while I was at Brown and Williamson, but he had become active early in the 80s or in that time frame. He was provocative and ballsy, and therefore my guess is that Don Barrett, who admits this in 2000, 2004, 2005, admits this and said, yeah, I'm the one and I'm glad I did it. I sent it to Stanton Glantz. He immediately undercuts everything that is, let's say that I had some interest in this, and certainly this would have been one interest, blowing my case in Louisville because of sanctions, which could have been one of the things. The fact that some fatheads with scholastic degrees and other things were going to exonerate themselves from the law in Kentucky, and yet achieve great things and continue to achieve great things. Is like stealing thunder, and that's what happened. But as to the answer to your question, no, he didn't have a legal right to it, and I'm sure he knew what was going on. No question about that. He knew what was going on. And all this Mr. Butts business, which was such a mystery to me, was cleared up. Stanton Glantz sent it to him. That's it.
Okay, and how many lawyers had violated Kentucky's order?
Every one of the lawyers.
In the first week?
No, well, I don't know in the first week, but certainly even to the point that Waxman, who had woefully declared, "Oh, there's somebody out there who's a thief." Well, this is the first time I become the thief. Well, hey, wait. Let me think about this thing a minute. Why are you calling me the thief when all these people are sending all these things out, and on the spur of the moment, we got a Learjet whooping around the country, and then, these people have already programmed their minds that I'm the thief. Well, in the first thought of this, I'm thinking, well, I guess you can say that if I didn't return it, I'm a thief. On the other hand, there wasn't anybody else out there going to return what they had gotten or purloined or taken or thieved. So, it's all how you look at it. But I was the one who took all the heat, because actually Stanton Glantz wasn't going to do anything with this until he had his team together, and they could read my book, and then they could sort through the documents, which, by the way, were not that difficult to sort through. And once they were put together with a program in mind, and that was the AMA article in less than a year. I mean, whole article dedicated to the Brown Williamson documents. Wow, that's fast, because it took us years to figure out some of the things that happened, and nevertheless, it happened that way. So, question.
When did Jeffrey Wigand review the documents?
Jeffrey Wigand, I was a pretty good guess that he probably was, from everything I've read in his not his dossier, but his profile, which is in the some of it is basically in the files in Louisville, Kentucky, where he starts very early. He was an angry man. He got thrown out, and he didn't take anything out. There wasn't a thing he could have taken out. They practically put him in a van chair and had him carried out by some Nairobi slaves from Louisville. Who knows? But that's what I heard. And the mystery as to when Jeffrey Wigand came out of the closet was certainly after September 23rd, 29th, when 1993. Now, Wigand becomes the he's kind of a secret in many ways, and in the hands of Lowell Bergman, and I think starting in Christmas around that, and then he's still with the tobacco companies as far as lawyering. So I'm going to guess that somewhere in 1995 he begins to interpret, or early in 95, because I received a lawsuit in February of 95, and it's basically my lawsuit, so my guess is, since he didn't really have anything as the man who knew what he knew, where he was, and I know where he was, he wasn't in the room with the archives and with all the nasty stuff. He was in a compartmentalized area where he could be controlled, and he left, and therefore the assumption could be that he knew an awful lot. He didn't. I can't imagine that he was. If he wanted to learn something, he could have gone down to the second floor, but he couldn't have gotten in. As he said, he couldn't go to the library. But I think the documents pointed, as Stanton Glances said, the documents were there, and then he could become the interpreter of the documents, and that's what he probably did starting in 1995. I don't really know, but not to impugn his dignity or his status in any way, which I don't think you can, because he fairly well asserts himself as a dignitary in the line of surpassing that of Idi Amin, except the cloak and dagger. I don't know. He's more narcissistic in terms of his conveying information to other people in other countries. He's got a job. He's been doing it for years. The same thing. Good actor, not bad.
I'm
I don't know.
curious. Why did Jeffrey Wigand have to review the documents?
Because he didn't know anything.
Oh,
How could he know anything? I mean, you don't put a man in an office like that, and where he was. You have two things that you're looking for. And this comes directly from the hothouse, where we reviewed documents from compartmentalized corporations. Corporation was compartmentalized. So wherever he was, what he knew, to some extent, he would certainly have been indoctrinated by Shokari Bacon, who would have certainly gone on the trips. The name of the obligation that Brown and Williamson had in terms of that was flavoring. So probably knew something about flavoring, but there are some areas where he was limited, and he was a manager, and so to that end, he had an interest in probably fire safe cigarettes as well, because they were introducing a new cigarette when he came there, and it was patented at Brown and Williamson. Very unusual cigarette, very small diameter.
this question is about when you returned with the documents from Florida. Did you have custody, and why?
Well, it's a matter of what you want to believe. I did. I believe that, but no, I didn't really have custody. There was a plan for those documents, and they were eventually going to be used the way that anybody wanted to use them. And then the press was informed as to how they got there, and this was through Dickie Scruggs' little network of press friends, not necessarily in Mississippi, because they wanted things outside of Mississippi, not inside Mississippi, as far as public relations.
Did Scruggs pay you for the documents?
No, he didn't pay me for the documents. If you end up this whole score, the only money that transpired was that $3,000, which was intentionally meant to, I suppose, give me some kind. And he never asked me about this kind of thing either. I think it was a little bit. I think at the beginning, and for a long time, he was open, and yet he was not going to break anything that would be, other than that silly remark he made in the beginning, which you could take for what it meant.
During this time, were you still writing Intent to Deceive?
Yes, that was what my purpose was.
Tell me about this.
No, I just had a room, and it was next to the vault, and I had a door, and it was next to the. It was an old building, but inside the building there was a project going on, and the project was led by one of the partners. It was called the Hearing Loss Center. When I was 10, I worked on that basically there, and then later at home. And I just thought I would continue to do it. I, I was happy to do it.
When did you first learn of the document dump? Or
Haven't we asked
when
that?
was Derby Day in 1994?
Oh, well, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
The Derby Day, very memorable moment because everything was opened up in Derby Day. Derby Day was a fascinating time for people who lived in Cal. I'll talk about that in the next page.